liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll kick off this evening with the budget hearing. Dr. Shaw.
Mr. Henson, you received this from me a few minutes ago. Open the budget hearing. This is the budget hearing point. Thank you. Thank you. So our timeline in July, we had information for the board. In August, we had the tentative budget. The board approved the tentative budget. That budget was attached to the website and put on display for 30 days. We have the hearing tonight, an opportunity for public input, and then the board approves the final budget. It's filed with the Will County ROE, the county clerk, and the budget is submitted to the State Board of Education. Our timeline, our fund policy is looking to make sure that we have the range between 33 and 65% in our fund balances. A highlight of our financial profile score from the State Board of Education, we file with recognition on an annual basis, which means that the board has been held to a highest standard that the state offers as being a financial recognition school district. Been good fiscal stewards of the taxpayer money. Some of our revenue highlights are our evidence-based funding. We had an increase of $27,931. We do have an elevating educator spend grant for $105,000. We did see a little bit of a decrease in our Title I. And then as a reminder, with our revenue is limited by the property tax extension limiting law. We do have a 5% CPI in 2023, which funds half of this year. And then our which will craft in November, December, is limited at 3.4, which was our CPI. We did have some increase in our transportation revenue through the state reimbursement claim. And then our expenses, we have our salary and benefits, additional staff. Our curriculum textbook workbooks. And then in our capital plan, we have $1 million over revenue, which is a purposeful spend down because of our leftover money from last year. And we do have a purchase of 2 school buses this year. This is our tentative budget FY25 summary. So this budget summary is exactly the same numbers that are in the State Board of Education form that was posted on the website 30 days ago. And so you can see that the revenue is at $26,207,295 with expenses at $27,882,723 with an over-under of 1.675, 428,000. Of that 1,675,000, a little over 1.1 million of that is the O&M referendum money purposeful spend down. And purposeful spend down in our IMRF because we wanted to make sure that we got our fund balance. So the actual deficit, operating deficit, is not as much as the 1.67 when 1.3 million of we'll spend now. Where does our money come from? Majority, 86% of our revenue comes from local revenue. We have 8.6% in state. Federal our working is picking up both sides because of entry accounting. So we have got working cash, which is also local revenue. And where does our money come from? Where does our money go? Majority of our money goes into salary, benefits, and purchase services. Just so purchase services is people. So this is also representative of people. We have supplies and materials for almost 8%, and capital outlay is our O&M referendum fund. So we do have a significant number in our capital outlay as we continue to do improvements throughout the district. Other objects are our special ed tuition and our cooperative, our special ed tuition and our bond payments. Our total expenses at $27,882,723. And our fund balance on all funds, you can see how we had some 22, we had a high fund balance and we're working our way down. So that's just a historical perspective of all of the funds and the fund balances. And then the next one is kind of a revenue, expenditure, and fund balance where you see the green is revenue, orange is expenses, and blue is the fund balance as the district fund balance through all the different funds. How are we doing? Our March 24 financial projections so that we're on a healthy path going forward for 5 years. We keep our fund balances between 33 and 65%. We'll receive our audit results at the August board meeting, and our unaudited fund balances are higher than budgeted, which is typical as we typically budget our revenue conservative and our expenses usually do see. Mm-hmm. Hold it down. Yeah.
So just for anybody who's listening, I just would like to correct one thing that you said. The audited results will be at the October board meeting.
Isn't that what I said?
I believe you said the August board meeting. So
Okay.
just for anybody listening.
Okay. It
It's
is
okay.
at the October board meeting.
Yep.
And so that's the financial projections for the next 5 years out based on the 24 budget, because that was done in the March 24th financial projections.
Okay, if anyone wishes to address the board regarding the 2024-2025 budget by written testimony?
No.
Okay. Oral testimony? Okay. Board comments? No?
There you go. You're on.
Is now the appropriate time, Dr. Shaw, to review the changes that we identified?
Sure, there'll be some changes. We will go through an amended budget process. We have identified several line items. There'll be revenue changes. There were revenue information from 30 days ago to today. That's information that will be updated. For example, the transportation report was submitted. We got those revenue numbers, which are different revenue numbers than what are in this budget from 30 days ago because that report wasn't due yet. So those revenue numbers will change. We got some more information back on our CPPRT revenue, so those numbers will change. I think I talked about those at the Finance Committee last month. We've got some expenses that we know are going to change as far as a $10,000 liability insurance line item. We talked about moving around some Board of Education line items to reflect Board of Education expenses.
Yeah. And usually those changes happen in between the tentative and the final budget being presented. I asked Dr. Shaw, though, just to stick with the original tentative budget, to keep that on file, and just so the board is aware, we will have, at some point in time, as we would have anyway, an amended budget coming up. So that's
So-
not unusual.
Right, so what you need to look at is the state budget form that's posted on the website from 30 days ago. That is what I'm asking for you to adopt tonight, the state budget form in its complete form from 30 days ago. None of the Skyward worksheets, the different iterations that you've seen since then are in play. Only the budget that was posted online from 30 days ago.
Okay. Any other board comments?
So there's some background to some of the expenses that the board is aware of that has come up this week, or I guess over the past month is a better term, some of them this week. And the total of the expenses that was detailed for the board was about $80,000. Do we have an estimate? And that is to say that there's $80,000 that we know is not reflected,
Additional
right?
Expenses.
Right, additional expenses that is not reflected in the numbers that we're passing tonight.
Correct.
And so I guess the question is, for the revenues, just so the board is aware, is there any estimate, Dr. Shaw, that you have on what the revenues would change as what we know right now on the transportation and the?
Yeah, the transportation revenue is going to increase. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I'm going to say it's very close to a $100,000 revenue increase in the transportation fund from the estimates from last year to the actual finished report. And there's grants too, yeah. Grant information isn't readily available. As that information comes in, we will adjust, and in the future, we'll make those adjustments in the amended budget through that process in the spring.
There's just so you're aware, there's rollover or carryover from year to year with the title grants, and those that usually comes in October. And then the state does provide final allocations, which is unknown in November typically. So while we have our preliminary grant allocations, those pieces come later. So we'll have to adjust those as well.
Okay, so thank you. I'm comfortable with that. My final point of discussion would be for the board. I think that as far as our timeline of how we review the budget, our attorney, we should run the ground, changes to the tentative budget, and then make sure that our finance committee meeting that the board is able to review the budget in detail happens in a period of time that is conducive to changes being made and not, after it's too late. That's more of a timing for next, I guess, for the amended budget.
Okay, any other comments?
I have a couple, please. Are there any legal implications of turning in a budget where we know that some of the budget is inaccurate or the expenses are low? Is there any kind of a legal liability or anything that we could be facing if we turn in a budget that we already have changes to that we know we're wrong?
No, I mean, the budget is a living, breathing document that changes over time. And oftentimes that process happens from the posting of the tentative budget until the budget hearing happens tonight. And in an effort to be conservative with the posting of that original tentative budget, we decided that it would just stay the same from the tentative budget that you approved to the exact same budget that you see in front of you tonight. But Dr. Shaw has worked very, very hard this month to identify, from the last board meeting, I should say, to identify changes that exist. And so you see those changes that we know of today. There will be additional changes. I can guarantee you that, as was just kind of discussed here, on the expense side and on the revenue side. So I don't think there's any liability issue there for the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, there were some expenses that were noted either in the, when you and I were meeting or at the finance meeting where, we erred on the side of those expenses being a little higher in some areas with the notion that not all of that will be used or needs to be used. Will there be adjustments to account for that that $80,000 approximately to make sure that it's more of a break even in the changes? Does that make sense to?
The amended budget, when we go through that process, you'll be able to see on the financial reports, the original and the amended. So you'll see those numbers as they change.
But it's not like a one-for-one trade-off of
No.
something, Julie.
No.
There's not like, because we overspent 10,000 in one line item, doesn't mean that we're going to find another line item to take $10,000 from.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm
Okay.
just wondering if that's on the table as well, that there'll be modifications where we identified previously that, this could be a little bit
Yeah.
high,
Yeah.
and we can take some of that down and
Yeah.
account for that 80,000.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that's on the table.
Mhm.
And then do we want to talk at all about the changes now, or do we want to talk about the ones that were identified? Or do we want to wait until the amendment process?
I think you wait till the budget is amended, because
Okay.
then you can deal
Fair
with
enough.
all of that kind of later in the year when it's more said and done and the dust has settled with the revenues and the expenses.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, sorry, I have one more thing. I'd like to address the board, and during our plan for the year, we established that the finance committee used to meet 12 times a year. It was reduced last year to 4 times a year, and there's a calendar that we review. We get in-depth in certain financial topics those 4 times that we meet. And in September is when we identified that the budget would be reviewed in depth by the board. The board, along this tentative process, was told that that was the board's opportunity and time to address the questions that we have and get, in depth on the budget. Now, previously, there has been board members that have expressed, me included, that there may not be enough time to have those conversations, and again, the timeline that the state dictates. But regardless, when we got to the meeting last week, Ms. Zielinski had, as the chair of the finance committee, had apparently set the stage that the finance committee meeting on the budget review would be consolidated to a 1-hour period of time, and instructed Dr. Shaw to keep within that 1-hour period, of which Dr. Shaw's presentation was estimated to take 45 minutes, which left board members 15 minutes of time to ask questions. Now, this was our one opportunity to meet as a whole and discuss the budget in depth. And I'm concerned that this 1-hour constraint is not going to satisfy, especially next year if we add, typically we would have the audit results in this meeting being reviewed as well. So now we have, thankfully we didn't have the audit because we were able to devote the whole 1 hour, but I just want to have a discussion on, is the 1 hour sufficient? I believe that it's not. And so I want to have a discussion on how the board feels of that as a board committee.
So we're in the budget hearing right now. If you want to discuss the finance committee, we can do that later. This is not the time to discuss finance committee.
Well, it's the finance committee. I'm talking about the budget. I'm talking about the board reviewing the budget. We were consolidated to a 1 hour period of time in our one opportunity to review the budget. And it allowed for 15 minutes of board member questions because that 1 hour constraint was put on.
Not sure what you want to discuss.
Well, is the board agreeable to this 1 hour period of time for us to review in depth the annual budget? Because we're going to have to address it again during the amended budget process. So it's going to come up again. And I just want to make sure that we don't have a similar constraint that only allows for 15 minutes.
Comments?
We had the budget for 74 days. And questions were. We had the budget for 74 days. It was out by Dr. Shaw. I know certain board members went and met with Dr. Shaw and talked about the budget. And the committee is made up of teachers and 2 chair board members. And, I mean, you guys had time to get your questions into Dr. Shaw. And not every board member was at that meeting. Thank you.
I did get my...
The amended budget, so not.
I did get my questions into Dr. Shaw, according to the new time frame, which is a whole other discussion. But I guess my question is the board as a whole agreeable to this new edict that our budget review and the finance committee get consolidated and into a 1 hour period of time? How are we going to really accomplish anything in depth in a 1 hour period of time?
Eric, may I?
Yep.
I didn't want to cut you off. Dr. Shaw, thank you for taking that time to meet with me a couple times. That was invaluable. But that was with Dr. Shaw and Mr. Stein one of the times. That isn't with the board. I don't want to speak for Kelly, but I think that's the difference of what the point she's trying to make. I think we can have that discussion again when we talk broader in the about the finance committee. But I do share your concern that we haven't discussed this specific tentative budget as a group, because there were issues that were identified. And if it weren't for these discussions that we had with Dr. Shaw, there wouldn't be some of the changes. And I think that it would do the board, it would be good for all of us to share in that conversation so we can all be on the same page and agree with some of the changes. So, but again, the time that I was able to spend with Dr. Shaw is appreciated, but I do think we need more as a group, especially when when we're dealing with the budget, which is one of our primary goals as an elected official. Thank you.
Okay.
Eric, how do you feel about the 1 hour? Do you think that's a sufficient amount of time, or what what are your thoughts? I mean, can we discuss this?
We're talking about future finance committee. I'm not sure why we're talking about it, but we're doing it, so we might as well just do it. Finance committee chair, just like the policy committee chair, runs the meetings. So if that chair wants to decide, that's in that chair's power. Just like as the president, I have the ability and the authority to cut off a discussion at any point in time. That is just the rule of a committee chair. So this notion that every meeting is going to be, you're trying to put in a box that everything is going to be an hour, and that's false. I don't believe that. I think that what the committee said when they were around the table is that, because there was a request multiple times to have more meetings, and what the committee said was we would rather have the same amount of meetings and stay longer. That's what the committee said. So this notion that everything is capped at 1 hour is false. I don't believe that. That's not what the committee said. We went around the room, and there are two teachers, there are two members of the community, and we all said that no, we do not want to have, or we don't think, because when we had 12 meetings, it was very repetitive, and we went over the amended budget twice. We went over the audit twice. It was way overkill, and we did that. And about 2 or 3 years ago, the committee decided we're going to do that. So this notion that I don't know where you're getting that everything going forward has to be 1 hour. I don't agree with that. That's not what the committee members said. And the chairperson of the committee, which is Ms. Zielinski, will follow the guidance that the committee has. So I don't think that this 1 hour arbitrary time deadline exists. I think we will, going forward, spend the time that is needed. So I'm not, comfortable saying that, oh my gosh, every finance committee meeting from now is an hour. It's just not going to happen. I don't think. Could be wrong, but my thoughts.
Right, okay, so I wasn't saying that there was an edict, like, that wasn't what I was saying. At the beginning of that finance committee meeting, Ms. Zielinski established, or I'm sorry, Dr. Shaw established that Ms. Zielinski had given her the direction to conclude the meeting in an hour, and that her presentation would take 45 minutes, and that would allow for 15 minutes of questions. So that is what was said at the beginning of that meeting. And it's my understanding that you are co-chair of the finance committee and that you both are chairpersons. It's not just Lisa. I thought there was 2 chairs. So, but regardless, this is a board committee. So that's why I wanted to establish it with the board. Like, the way that our board committee works is up to the board as a whole, not just one person.
Any other board comments? Okay, budget hearing is an opportunity for members of the community to make comments regarding the proposed budget. At this time, the questions and comments regarding the proposed budget seem to be exhausted. I move that the Board of Education close the 2024-2025 budget hearing. Is there a second? Second by Sam. Okay, please call the vote, Kelly.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Can't hear you.
I have my mic on.
Can you hear us? Okay.
We'll call that a yes.
That's a
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan? Mrs. Ost? Mrs. Tunney? Mrs. Zielinski?
Okay, motion passed. Okay, we will move on to public communications. I did at 4:35 receive an email wanting a statement to be read, but individuals could not be here to be here do that, so they requested that I read their comment. But I will say that policy 2:230 states that any written correspondence to the board shall be presented to the board in the next regular board packet. So we will not be reading that tonight in closed or in public communications. It will be posted for next meeting in accordance with our policy. So with that, we have one speaker tonight, Mr. Martinez. You are up.
All right. Hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Craig Martinez. I teach 8th grade language arts. For those who do know me, I'm still Craig Martinez and teach language arts. I'm here on behalf of MTA spotlighting our 8th grade here tonight. Why me? Because apparently I have the slowest not me reflexes of the team. But that, and it is pretty remarkable. Our group of people, every single person on the 8th grade team coaches or sponsors at least one activity or one thing in our building or another building somewhere else. We're that involved beyond just our classroom. Mine don't start till October and second semester. So I'm available and I'm here, and you got to listen to me for the next couple of seconds. So I'll take you through some of the highlights of what we've got going on here in 8th grade. A lot of it is continuing on with our traditions. We'll be going to vertical endeavors soon, but on behalf of the PE department. Later on, we're looking forward to our trip to Washington, D.C. We'll be doing all the activities that we normally do here in 8th grade. But probably the most significant thing about this particular year is our Kinder Buddies program. What makes it particularly special about this year is that our 8th graders were the first kindergartners to go through the program. So these kids we've got this year that we're bringing down, we just came down for the first day on Wednesday. They were in those shoes sitting scared at the table wondering what these big kids were going to be like 8 years ago. And now they're the big kids. Now they're the ones who are showing up and helping them with the crayons and spelling words for them. And it's just remarkable to see that come now full circle here. We saw it last year, and it did not surprise us again this year, that one of the things that we've also added to the program in that time is looking to make sure that we're including all of the kids that are available. And so some of the kids in the kindergarten, of course, have very special needs. And it takes a very special person to be able to work with somebody who may not talk to you, who may not be able to sit with you, who may not be able to make it all the way through the session. So what we do with our kids and they don't even know how the Kinder Buddies is going to go in general. But we ask, do we have any volunteers to work with somebody who's going to take some extra patience? Do we have any volunteers that would work with somebody who may be more challenging? We have 2 kids we knew coming into it that we're going to need 2 super buddies for. And we had 27 volunteers. We have 170 some kids. I don't know exactly what our room, but about 170 kids. 27 of them said, I'll do that. Can I do that? So we actually have a waiting list. But, so it's remarkable to see 13 and 14-year-olds with all the things that you hear about teenagers. When you tell people that you work in a junior high and they're like, why? How crazy must you be to work with these kids? But if you see them working with them, reading to them from the book on the rack over on the side, it's pretty remarkable. And so this is probably one of the most special years we're going to have with Kinder Buddies. And I know she's already crying behind me, but this is also Debbie Blank's last year with the Kinder Buddies, and she was instrumental in making this work. Every year we contact her. Every year we make the arrangements, and she coordinates that stuff. And then in the spring, I hit her up for old yearbooks because I take the kindergarten pictures of our 8th graders. I run photocopies of them off, and I stick them up in the hallway the last week of class. And the kids don't know it's coming. They walk out there, and they see their kindergarten pictures up there from when they were back in the day. And she's already thinking ahead last spring by sending me ahead the next few years. So it is amazing what our kids get in kindergarten, and it's amazing what they get the whole way up through our district. And then we send them off to Lincoln Way with that type of roundabout experience of coming back when they started here in Mokena. So keep up the good work that you've done supporting what we do here, and that's going to be one of the highlights of our 8th grade year this year.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Okay, first up on the presentation is Educational Leadership Solutions.
Do this better this time. We'll have the mic. Good evening, board members, Mr. Stein, and members of our audience, as well as our staff and community members that are here at home. Am I on? Can you hear me? We're delighted to be back here again. We are here to really start getting the ball rolling and for this project that you've got. As you know, to start with last time, we went out and met with all of you between 30 to 45 minutes, or maybe a little bit longer. And we talked with each one of you. And I will tell you, John and I, when we got done, we said, wow, what a great group of people. Truly. We have met, very impressed by you, that how committed you are, how much you care about this district, the students, the staff here, and how proud you are of this district and your community. So I wanted to just share that with you. Collectively, you are all in the right place, doing the right things for kids. So just wanted to pass that along to you. Now, John has passed out your little folder, but I actually have something to pass out as well from John and me. I'll give you one.
I'll hold this. You get to pass out the fun stuff. I'm going to just...
So we do live near Mokena, so we did stop by the Humble Cookies. So this is to say thank you for giving us that time. So, you're so welcome. Here we go. One for you. This is the one that's going to be.
Thank you.
They're chocolate chips. I figured you can't go wrong with chocolate chips, right? Can't go wrong with crumble. I know, thank you. And one for you, because you're going to be working really hard too. And Ms. Brosco, we're going to get one for you. So, and I think I got it, but you're right.
Thank you.
There you go. So, here's the thing. We are not going to think it's rude if you want to eat some of it now. It'll help the next hour go a little faster. So feel free to dig in there if you want to. Okay, so tonight we really have 4 tasks that we need to accomplish tonight. And so that's our marching papers to get going. So the first thing we're going to do, we need your guidance on job descriptions. Now, we have the job description. We've got a couple questions that came up about whether we want to have a doctorate preferred or not, so we'll talk about that. We want to talk about the survey. There was a couple questions that came out about that survey. We want to clear that up so we can get that up and running. The timeline, I wanted to go through that timeline so everyone was really comfortable with the things that we were going to be doing. And last, talk about the focus groups. What does that look like? How are you going to set them up? And we are looking to have them done in one day. So that's the gist of what we're going to be talking about pretty quick. We've got hard copies for you so you can take notes and make comments. Please feel free to just stop, interrupt us, ask some questions, because we want to make sure this is more of a conversation tonight so that when John and I go back to our offices, we know exactly what we're going to be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So go ahead and start off with your agenda. You can follow along with our agenda here. That's in front of you. So the first thing I'm going to talk about quickly is just confidentiality. And I think we touched on this before. This has to be a really confidential process. You get that. What we heard from you is you would prefer someone with experience, a sitting superintendent, to come in. So certainly if that is something that we are looking for, we are going to be recruiting probably from locals as well as some for a little bit broader. So they're going to be a little bit squeamish about putting their name out there. So you can understand we are definitely going to keep this confidential even after we're all done here with the process. And the next thing is talking about liaisons. I think we just needed to be clear who we were able to talk to, again, with scheduling and focus groups. So I'm assuming it's probably going to be Mr. Stein and Miss Kelly Lynn. Is that still going to be correct? It would be for setting up focus groups, scheduling, those types of things. Our communication still goes strictly through you, President Bush, and then you'll CC the board, but we just need somebody at the district level to coordinate with. Okay, right. Terrific. That's why you got the cookie, by the way.
And Kelly then got the cookie.
And Kelly got the cookies. Yeah, she should have had 2. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the website
Yes, we want to propose some upgrades to the website for advertising this position. I think that you can see here in the folder, we have a calendar of everything that's going to happen, and Kara's going to go through that calendar in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. But it's helpful for your community to know when things are going to happen so that they can anticipate when announcements are going to be made or when certain milestones are going to be met in this process. The letter to staff and community is in there. I know you've had it in advance notice. Is there anything in that letter that you would want to see changed? Because I will say that no one came forward with any email comments to us, and so we felt very comfortable that that letter could be good to go as long as you're comfortable with it.
And as soon as we get that survey okayed by you, we'll put that fresh link in and it'll be ready to go. Okay.
And the survey is in there, and I know that Kara just mentioned that there were some questions about the survey or certain things that you would want to see asked, and we want to be very receptive to what specifically you'd like to see added into the survey or taken from the survey. The one thing, the caveat that I will give you is that the survey in its current form would be good to go to collect information. If we needed to make amendments to the survey, it might delay the calendar process a little bit while we change things up, because it also then involves the data collection end of it, and we want to make sure we're reporting accurate results to you. So go ahead, Steve.
John, quick question. It seems to me that the board is okay with this letter for the website. So at what point do I get a thumbs up from you that the link is ready to go? Because I don't want to post this until you give me the go-ahead.
Correct. All this is really contingent on this survey.
Gotcha.
Once we clarify the survey to where you need it to look like,
Right.
we'll put the link in, we'll send it to you, we'll CC President Bush, and then it'll be ready to go.
Gotcha. Good.
So this would be a great opportunity for you to make any suggestions that you'd like to the survey at this time.
You want to look at number 2? Because here's the question that came up that I think
Oh,
we need either,
You,
sorry.
I'll hold you read.
We need to either clarify this. I think the question number 2 was looking at a bunch of those descriptors as far as what were the priorities. And I think we needed to either highlight or clarify what it means by board governance. And if it's too murky, we can take it out. When we talk about board governance, it wasn't that necessarily that the superintendent is governing you, clearly not. However, the superintendent is really considered the right hand of the board, and the governance piece would be, getting press policy up, things for election, putting that up on the website, those kind of things. But maybe lay people that would be taking the survey may not understand that. So I guess I wanted to ask you, do you want us to just take it out? So what's the consensus of the board on that one?
I would suggest taking it out.
Okay.
I think it's easier to take it out than try to add
To
a
explain
bunch
it.
of words to explain it, because it would mess up the layout and everything.
Yeah, I can see that. So is that the consensus with everyone? We're good taking that out?
Yeah, I explained in my email. I agree. I think it's better taken out. I just thought of something.
Oh,
So
sure.
I apologize. This wasn't conveyed
That's okay.
before right now. But one of the things that's happened this week is safety related concerns.
Yes.
And so I think that potentially could be a point that we add to this, specific to safety being a point of focus, or even a quality that they have experience undertaking, some new wave safety initiatives, and not just kind of the way districts have handled safety for the past 20 years.
I agree 100%. Everybody's talking about it right now. So, as the survey goes out, that's going to be on everyone's mind. We'll add that in there. Anything else that we could add in?
Or take out.
Any other questions that you think should be in here? Or is this sufficient? As I tried to explain before, this was a generic kind of things that we've done with other districts. We can customize it to you. But this generally gets us where we need to go.
So one thing that I was trying to reconcile in my head was it was my understanding that the survey was to get to an end that would leave us with the profile of the superintendent, right? So one of the things that I was just trying to reconcile was like, with that goal in mind, why are we addressing the priorities of the district when it's more of a quality of the person or experience of the person? So the only thing that I can think of is like potentially adding something to speak to some kind of special training maybe that we think that someone should have, or maybe I realize that this is not very coherent, but I guess what I'm trying to say is a quality of the person to me would be the depth of experience they have in certain subject matters potentially that we are not asking.
When we take this data and we create a profile, part of this is also in what we will use it for is when we have the whole mass of candidates and we're screening them, we're going to find people who are aligning with those without purposely identifying them. And so therefore, if they're saying things like, if the community says, for example, safety is important because we just added this in, and they mentioned that, safety is a priority for them, that would be a key indicator for somebody who's maybe done a little bit more research and looked into the community and the district a little bit more. Maybe they've been watching board meetings. Maybe they're listening carefully. These are the things that we will take from this. You will have the profile to know what it is, because we intend to bring it back at your next board meeting. I believe that's our timeline for that. Oh, there you go. And then at that point, you'll have that knowledge, but then we're going to use it in the screening process of all the candidates that are putting in applications. So I don't know if the training is going to be that distinctive, but I think that really in this case, these qualities are identifying different priorities. And if they're identifying priorities that are relatable to your community groups that are taking the survey, then that person's in a close alignment with what you're looking for. Sure.
So if we're okay with that, I'm going to just pop us right over to job description. I think I just wanted to clarify.
Are we good with this then?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll make the one change, safety,
Two changes.
take governance out, put safety in.
Got
Swap
it.
in.
Got that. That's easy. We can do that. Job description, I think I kind of agree. We had some questions coming in, whether there was a doctorate or not a doctorate. What you see in a lot of these is doctorate preferred, not required. Is that pretty much the consensus that everyone's okay with that? Small tweak, and then we can get that up and running. And then we can get this on your website. I didn't want to put it on your website till I had consensus for that. So we can get this turned around probably tomorrow, if not the day after. So that was good. Moving right along then. Postings. Yes.
One of the things that we're going to get questioned about is the salary range for the position. We took a look and had Dr. White do a survey of the area to find out what is consensus among the area superintendents, in particular the ones you would probably look at as your comparables. And we saw that for newish superintendents, people without much superintendent experience, 175 seemed to be a good starting point. At the high end of experience, you probably are looking at about 200,000. And I just want to make sure, are you comfortable with that range? I don't have to be comfortable with it. I need you to be comfortable with it, because I don't want to say something that oversteps my authorities. So is this a range that is comfortable for the board?
Well, I believe Mark, or Dr. Cohen was scheduled to make 192 before he parted. So I think that's right in the sweet spot. I think your range is probably seems right. Seems right to me.
I just want to make sure that we have a entry point and a top end, and that range is what we stay between if we're ever asked those questions by candidates, because it will come up, and that'll happen when we screen them and then they ask us the question. We give every candidate the opportunity to ask us questions at the end of the screening. That will come up. So
let me ask you this. Is 25,000 in your experience, excuse me, enough? Because if we're looking at a superintendent with 5 years experience versus someone with 15 years experience, is a $25,000 range you think sufficient?
I think in the range that I see in this area, it is. I think it would be a comfortable swing spot right there in between those two numbers. I think at that point, you're not counting other benefits that a superintendent gets in their contract. This is strictly salary number. This is not the benefit number. This isn't the other benefits that you provide this individual for doing this work. So we're just focusing only on the salary part. The benefits piece is also added on, but we are not going to, that's at the liberty of discussing in the finalists to discuss with you.
So just for clarity, I think the number for our previous superintendent was in the 180s, and then with the benefits is where it got into the 190s. But that's not to say that I just want to disclose that to the community, so we're comparing apples to apples. Sure. But for an experienced high end of experience, I'm completely comfortable with that high end range.
Okay.
I speak for myself.
I think it'll be very helpful because as we're going out, the first thing people want to know, all right, what's the salary going to be? Because I don't want to interview for something if it's going to be lower than I'm already making. So that gives us a little bit more latitude when we go out there to be focusing on people, and we can get more candidates that way. So thank you for that.
The only thing I wanted to add, and I know that that you and I talked about this, and it may not be as helpful as I originally thought it was, but the IASB journal, the last issue had a write-up on superintendent salaries. So you may find that interesting, and it was by region, but we're in that Chicago area region, so it could really have our particular region. It was a very wide range, but if anyone is curious to go back and look, this is within that, well within that, and is supported by it. Even if it's not the best data point, it is within that range.
Good, thank you for that.
Anna's got a question, I think. Anna, you got a question?
You have a question, Anna?
No, I didn't have a question. I just think that I just want you guys to know I am okay with this range. I would like to find someone with experience and quality to bring to our district, and that price, if that's what it takes to get them in there, then we need to do it.
Thank you so much. What this will do, and again, with the survey being updated and the letter being complete and the job description getting slightly modified, we'll be able to start the postings on the Educational Leadership Solutions website, the IASA Job Bank, which will be helpful. And Kara and I do belong to several professional associations where we have access to listservs that will allow us to broadcast this in a different way and push out to people who will say, they're maybe looking for a new spot to land, or they're looking for a new opportunity to serve. This could be that person that we reach out to. So I'm very comfortable with the people that we know in our own separate groups, that we can cover a pretty wide area of superintendents who are sitting, as well as those who are in central office positions and are ready to move into that seat. So I believe you're going to attract a great many candidates.
Okay, I'm going to jump right into pulling out the proposed calendar. We'll go through that. I tried to keep it as tight as it was, and you can see it takes some time to go through everything. I didn't want to have it so rushed, especially with the holidays. We got the III conference coming up. I figured you didn't want to be at special meetings like every week during that time. So I figured let's stretch it out a little bit more so everyone's comfortable and we can get moving through. So in bold are the board meetings that we will attend at, and those will be the things that we are presenting deliverables. As I have done before, we will send a weekly update so that you know exactly what we covered for the week. So you know we're out there doing a few things. We'll let you know how many candidates we're getting, and those kinds of things. So tonight, again, we finalized our timeline, our survey. We will start opening the survey once we make these corrections, and we will have it closed after October 4th. We're only running it for 2 weeks. Research says after 2 weeks, no one's looking. So you'll probably get this up and running within the week. We'll probably have most of our numbers in there. Following that, we were looking at running a focus group. I was under the impression that everyone wants a focus group, correct? Okay. All right. So we looked at our schedules and we threw a date out here. So this is where we're going to ask Mr. Stein and to talk with his staff members. We threw out October 4th. It's a Thursday. 3rd? I have the wrong date on here. Sorry. 3rd. What we're planning to do is one day. So again, it's cost efficient for you. With both of us running and back to back, we're here, for a good chunk of the day. I have a mock one that I have done. If anyone wanted to kind of just see it, but basically it looks like, starting at like 12:30 to 1:15, he and I would run maybe certified staff along with support specialists, maybe thinking one representative at each of the grade levels. So a representative at first grade, kindergarten, second grade. So you have a good variety as well. And then doing the same thing with our non-certified staff, your custodians, your secretaries, and making sure you've got a group. And that would be perhaps next, 1:30 to 2:30. Again, 45 minutes. One of us would be facilitating, and the other one would be writing. 15 minutes in between. Mr. Stein and his staff will just try to figure out a location. If it can't be done during the day, you let me know, and then we could just push them to an after school. What we know is it's best to get teachers before they leave because so many people have commitments after school. So that's why we try to embed it within the day. So we'll talk with you about how that could look, whether arranging subs or coverage. I know that. I know. And maybe we can talk later about some thoughts I have on how to manage that. And then we would also include administrators. We would separate school administration versus central office administration. They tend to have different things. And then we would open up to parents and community members in the evening, like a 5:30 through 7:15, depending on how many we get. So if we needed to run 2 sessions, I like to keep the focus groups no more than 12 because you can get more voice in that setting. I know there's a lot of interest out there, so I think we might want to consider, how we go about doing the focus groups. And there's a couple ways that we can do that. You could put an all call out through your website and so forth, or the board could, if you can think of, you can select or invite a few members, each person maybe selecting 3 members, somebody within the community or a parent group that we could do it one of the 2 ways to help kind of expedite that process. So we can talk about that a little bit later. But again, just wanting that focus group to come, we ask everybody the same questions. Do you have anything to add?
No, I would only just say a personal invitation sometimes is something that's harder to say no to when given the circumstance. If you're inviting certain people that to be a part of this process, and it then allows everybody to have different groups of people that are coming in, and not everyone will be able to do it. So, if you can think of 3 to 5 people that you would want to put forward, we could then do this so we could end up with approximately the 12 individuals that will likely be available during that time period on that day to come in and have that in-person focus group opportunity. So, and then we would coordinate that again with Mr. Stein and Mrs. Lynn to make sure that the communications are going out and spaces are identified.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move, yes?
So did I hear that the parents and the community focus group that I heard you said no more than 12 in one, but I thought you said there would be potentially 2 of them, or is there only potentially one?
It depends on many.
If I can get them in one, I'll do one. If we have a lot of people saying, I'm coming out, we'll split them in. He'll take a group, I'll take a group, we'll run them concurrently. And if we have to do 4 groups, we will. So we'll get them all in. And that's how we'll do it.
So, going back to when the board evaluated, we had multiple. I guess when we selected you guys as our consultants, it was my understanding that the pricing for a focus group was, if I remember correctly, it was $1,500 for however many focus groups we needed. Is that still the case, or is it just is it a per day?
I believe it's a daily rate.
We believe that we could get all this done. Your district is small. We have some districts that we have 5,000, 6,000 kids, and you're going to have to spread it out. We really believe that we can get this done in one day.
So is there just out of curiosity, for the goal as far as the parents and community focus group, is there a best practices on, what our enrollment is and how big of a sampling, you have in those focus groups? Like for our district being 1,550 or whatever the number is 12 a sufficient number or 24 a sufficient number?
No, it would be 12, and I'll tell you why. Whenever you're doing a focus group, you are getting a sampling. More is not always better. What you end up finding is everyone's saying the same thing. And what you're going to do is we're going to triangulate this back with your data and see if they marry each other. What a focus group does is it gives the individual stories, individual situations, and what you see almost 100% of the time, there are definite trends in there. You're not going to have more people say something different. Does that make sense? Okay.
Just a quick thank you for that. A quick question back to the administration. So you'd mentioned that that the teachers and the staff potentially would have one representative from each group. As far as our administrators, are we including every single one of them?
You have a small group of administrators.
Yes. So I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a sample. Okay. All right.
So it's whoever wants to come. If we have 2, we'll take the 2. But we may have more. You never know.
I have just one real quick thing. I know you have only so many hours in the day, but for the parent groups or community groups, if there's a way to accommodate one in the during the day and then one in the evening, I think that would be a really good opportunity to reach those folks that may not be able to have childcare, or during the day they'd be able to. Some folks work from home, or you know what I'm saying.
I love that idea, actually, and super easy to do, especially if we don't have any other teachers going on. Maybe at 11 o'clock, that's a really easy time for us to bring them in. So when we go to request them, maybe we could say, do you want this block of time or this block of time? And then we could maybe get more people in that way. So thank you for suggesting that. Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, I knew the focus group. I definitely wanted to vet that one out. The rest of the sheet is pretty explanatory. Once we get those focus groups, that is the bulk of the work. We start doing the analyzing right away. It takes a little bit of time. We'll come back October 16th. We'll present the community surveys, the superintendent profile, and we'll also break it out for the board stakeholder group if you would like. I think if you wanted to see just, again, trend data. Trends of commonalities that we're going to say. We're not sharing every single thing that everyone said. We're just looking for trends that we would see. Then we're getting ready to start screening candidates. We have quite a few weeks that we're screening them. We'll start with probably some over-the-phone interviews first, start narrowing down that, and then start calling people in for in-person interviews quite a bit. We're going to close the application around November 10th. If we need to let it open a little bit longer to capture a few more, we certainly will. And then our goal is to start checking credentials of the 6 that we believe we're going to select. And when we look at the credentials, we do a deep dive. We're looking at everything. We're looking at their social media. Anyway, from hiring folks these days, there's a lot of work involved because there's just more stuff to look at. So we do a deep dive on that. We'll leave people alone during Thanksgiving break. And then this is where all the work starts coming in. And you folks can start thinking about what board meetings you're going to want to have. You'll have to come up with some special board meetings. Probably one the week of December 1st through the 7th. That's going to be your one round. You're going to take all 6 candidates. And I believe we're going to have it just be the board. You want to see everybody. Then the next week, you'll do another board meeting, the 8th through the 14th, and that's when you're going to narrow it down to 3 candidates. Now, I believe you would like other stakeholders to be part of that interview process, correct? The 3, yes.
The finals.
Yes, so then what does that look like? We'll do it all the same day. So we will have 3 rooms, 2 rooms, and we'll just start rotating everybody. I think you've done that before. So that's what that looks like. And then the board will take the last interview of the 2 candidates, and that's when we pose a performance-based task. And I've shared before, that really does separate. If you're confused on who's to pick, that will usually,
Final separator.
yeah, it really does. We'll leave you alone for winter. Then you come back at December 18th in your closed session, and then winter break. And then in January, it gives a chance to finalize the contract. Attorneys on both sides take a look at it, and then we'll be ready to vote at the January 15th meeting, and then you'd be in pretty good shape for having that done. Oh, yes, sir,
Kara,
sorry.
can you emphasize the fact that those board meetings that are going to be scheduled with the candidates, those are not open public meetings?
They are closed session.
Yes.
Yes, they are closed session meetings, so thank you for that. So anyway, that is our timeline. I expect us to stay pretty tight on it. If there's some blips in it, we will notify you immediately if we're off schedule in any shape or form. Okay, I think we're winding down to it. So, all right, so I think this is our summary of what our to-do list is. We're going to modify the job description. We are going to add 2 points to the survey.
Take one off, put one on.
Yes. As soon as we get that link there, we're going to send it to Mr. Stein for him to put out that post. We're going to give you the post for your website. And then at the end of the week, I will continue to do the weekly updates so that you know what's going on until we see you back here on October 16th.
Do you have any questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to let you know, I really like the website component that you guys identified. I think that'll help with our community. And then the second thing, which I really like, is that performance-based task. And so I assume we're going to see the task.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We can have some input on it. What we try to do is customize it to you about what you want to see.
What you want to see, yeah. That's it. And how satisfied you as a unit are with the responses that you get in that.
All right, we've got our to-do list. So thank you very much. I'm going to bring my cookie. I'm going to give it to Mr. Stein to give to Ms. Roscoe. Because I would feel remiss if I did not get you your cookie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the school improvement plans. Who's gonna, do you wanna? Chris?
Dr. Johnson, can you pick that up for us, please?
Dr. Johnson.
Okay, so just as a little recap, this is our 4th year working through school improvement plans. Every year we get better and better at refining our process and what that looks like. This school year, our process kicked off over the summer with our building leadership teams all joining us together at the beginning of August here in this room. It was a great day where we were all together as a district, making sure we had collective district focus, but then also having that opportunity for each building to really dig through their data to identify areas of glow, we called it, things that were going very well, and also then areas of growth that could be capitalized on to build out their school improvement plans and goals for this school year. So after that process, the building leadership teams, under the leadership of their principals, went back to their schools and continued to refine their school improvement plans. And so what you will see this evening is that collaborative effort between our principals and our building leadership teams, as well as the rest of their staff, in outlining those goals that they have for themselves to improve what we do for kids each day. So we have our little presentation for you that will give you an overview of what those goals and action steps look like.
Okay. Oh, thanks. All right, so we have two goals. Our first one is a carryover from last year. It's a 3-year goal, and it's to increase our writing proficiency. So by May of 2026, our students will increase writing proficiency as evidenced through the end of unit writing assessment rubrics and report card data. We had this goal last year. We collected the data and we compared how our students were growing throughout the modules as well as throughout the trimesters. Not much has changed this goal. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Thought there was one more that changed. I could be wrong. No. So this goal stayed the same. So we'll be monitoring our growth data and sharing it out within our group, looking for trends, seeing if there's areas that we should narrow our focus on, including we're looking at knowledge and understanding, which is basically comprehension, organization and purpose, which is how they organize their thoughts and give purpose to their writing, and then evidence and elaboration. It's when students stake a claim or express an opinion or a fact, and they find evidence within the text to support their writing. Writing, the application, the process of writing is really the application of their knowledge that they've gained from their reading. So when our students are focusing on their writing skills, they are strengthening their reading comprehension skills. So we're really looking to see how students are writing, but really what is the content? How are they organizing their thought and demonstrating what they know? All right, our next goal is a new goal. Last year we focused on the implementation of our new ELA curriculum resource, EL reading. Our teachers are in a good place. They decided that they didn't need to have a goal for that anymore. So we looked at how we can take that goal to the next level. And it's to use the information that we gain throughout our lessons to implement responsive teaching to students that are, our target students would be students that have not quite yet demonstrated skill mastery, but they are approaching it. So we would be looking at our FastBridge information, but really more of our assessment, our rubrics, how our students are performing, if they are need extra attention and support to develop those skills, to solidify those skills, then teachers will be focusing on those students during win time. So we are looking at team notes, BLT feedback. We want to make sure that our students that are demonstrating, that are just on that cusp of mastering skills, we're focusing on them to help them develop those, solidify them. So during small group instruction during WIN is when we will do this. One team meeting a week and time during each school improvement meeting will be dedicated to determining student groupings. They're flexible groupings, they're responsive, they are not tracks of students. So we'll also be looking at resources and levels of support. Administration will conduct informal check-ins during win time to determine what additional support is needed. And then we're also collaborating and coordinating our efforts with the instructional coaches to determine what professional learning needs to happen for our teachers so that we can help them implement strong structures and use resources that support their efforts. Those are our goals.
All right, we have 2 goals as well. Our first goal is a carryover from last year for writing and math, utilizing the CER format, the claim, evidence, and reasoning formats. Basically the same thing. However, we have upped the ante, so to speak. The questions, the prompts that our students are going to be responding to are now multi-step problems. Last year, as we're learning the formats, we learned from the junior high that when they're learning the format, we want the mathematical problems to be a little bit more simplified so they can get the process down. Now they have the process, so now the questions that we're asking them to respond to are going to be more challenging. There would be those multi-step problems. So that is going to be more rigorous for our students. We're going to be focusing more on vocabulary. Last year, again, learning the process, started a little bit lower level. Now we're expecting more from our students. This is year 2, so we're really looking at, more, those deeper responses from our kiddos. Our teachers have committed to writing even more. Last year we wrote a full CER probably every other week. This year they are going to be doing writing weekly as well as shorter responses throughout the week. They may not write a complete CER response, but they may write a claim, or they may have to orally give the reasoning for the problem. So, lots of opportunities to put this structure into place. Another big focus for us as far as math writing goes is teacher and peer feedback. And this is one of the places where we're bringing in a component from EL education. They have it's a lesson where they talk about how to give feedback and appropriate sentence starters. So we're going to take that and we're going to incorporate that within our math lessons as well. So our ELA teachers, math teachers working collaboratively to put that into place. And then the last thing, it's not just writing and math. As Dr. Rolinits always said, this is a thinking strategy. This is teaching our kids how to think. So yes, they're applying it to math, but it carries over to ELA as well. It carries over to everything that they're doing within, the school. So it really is wonderful. We only do it in math. I know the junior high does it for all content areas. We'll get there. But it really is a fabulous structure to use. Our second goal is also a carryover from last year, and it's utilizing writing in our EL education program. Some of the ways, we're using the same writing pieces, so we'll be able to compare last year to this year, seeing how the students are doing. Our teachers have last year's data, so as they're working through the current lessons, they can look back and see, this is an area where we may need to beef up instruction just a little bit. So we're using the same writing pieces, focusing more on vocabulary again. Last year, the first year with our program, there's so much to it. Vocabulary, yes, they used it. This year, since everybody's more familiar with it, it's really going to be a stronger focus, ensuring the students are using, the domain-specific vocabulary. And again, the feedback, the same as with math. Feedback is going to be a huge component of what they're doing within the class. And it really is, last year they did it, getting into those classrooms, it really is neat to see the kids do it. They're having these conversations with each other. They're grown-up level conversations. That's a good point you made, but did you think about this? So they're really bouncing ideas off each other. It really is, a fabulous thing. The other thing that we are doing this year to kind of to up that rigor is we're moving from a 3-point rubric to a 4-point rubric. So, we're expecting more in year 2. We're expecting more developed, more elaborate writing for our kiddos. And I do want to say, before I pass it off to Dr. Rolinits, I want to thank Mrs. Chorley and our 3rd grade teachers, because our 4th grade teachers can't say enough about the level of the kiddos that are coming into us. That they're, last year, the first year they started here, this year, they're way up here. So they're getting into more right away. So congratulations and thank you very much. So thank you guys.
Thank them. Yeah.
All right, so I was fully prepared this summer to move on from this goal, but our data, as we looked at it over the summer, we decided as a team that we were going to have a year 4 of our 3-year goals in CER writing and our writing skills. And what we realized was that our kids really did understand the concept, the CER concept, and you guys saw our scores and know that they did really go up. But what we found was that kids are, we need to refine the skill. So we put a year of application is what we're calling it, that our students understand claim, evidence, reasoning, but if Mr. Martinez was still here, he would tell you that yes, they can put that all down, but it's not all, it's kind of clunky still. That it's good enough to do fairly well on the state tests, but we want to add introductions, we want to add transitions, we want to add conclusions, we want to kind of tie it together. We want to make sure that they're actually answering the prompts that we give them and they're able to transfer that skill effectively between the subject areas, whether it's science, history, math. It goes back to that thought process that we talked about before. In math, we're not always using CER to write things out. We may be needing that thought process, and choosing the right way to answer a question may be a skill that we don't really have as well as we would like. So that's all encompassed here in our application of CER for year 4. So that's our first goal. Our second goal, I'm amazed that it didn't change on my screen. Our second goal is year 2 of our building a community goal. Our team came to us last year and said, we just don't have the school spirit. We don't have the connection that we want for our kids. We want to see that kind of that Lincoln Way spirit where they go to Lincoln Way and it's you bleed red and gold, black, and used to be blue and black, but when we were east, but you just feel that. So we want to have that more in our building as well with the students and the staff. So they're going to continue to have different activities that engage students beyond the classroom, trying to get more kids to come to after-school activities. The back-to-school bash was a great example. We had a ton of kids there. It's fun activities where they feel very connected to the school. We want teachers to be there. We're having our first pink out night. We had last year they was like a Barbie theme. That'll be coming up here in October for everybody to come and wear your pink and support the basketball team. We had already the pit crew invited staff members to come to a softball game and be recognized to come. Students invited staff to come to softball games. So there's a lot that's going on there. They're continuing to come up with fun activities, maybe some volunteer activities as well for that one. And then our goal 3. Last year we talked about metacognition, thinking about thinking. And so now we want to start putting some of those things in practice. And we're talking about kind of a few self-monitoring tools. So this semester we're going to be looking at consistent annotating text that can be used in all classrooms. Kind of dovetailing with some of the things that the high school does. So we'll be rolling that out, I know, and making it consistent across all of the subject areas. And we're also, I just got a message today I've got to talk to Lincoln about that I think we're done with Studio is set up. And so Studio is a planner program that they use at the high school, and that we're going to be rolling that out with our students as well. Again, that thinking about thinking, planning ahead, executive functioning, that's what this goal is about. So those are our 3. We're excited to do all 3 and roll those out and just continue to move forward.
Hey, any questions? I got a quick one. So how often are we going to get updates throughout the school year?
Anytime you want.
I believe our past practice has been a year and an end of year update. So we'll stick to that unless the board wants something different. But that has been like our formal updates, but I believe the principals have included little informal updates in their reports throughout the year as well. But as long as you're still in favor of the mid and end, we'll continue that practice.
Good, thank you. Okay. Next up, we'll go to information reports, Finance Committee, Mrs. Zelinski.
Well, for this month's finance meeting, we talked about the amended budget. Dr. Shaw had the presentation this evening. There's not much to add. Our next meeting will be November 11th at 7 p.m. and the topics will be the current levy, summer projects, and we're going to revisit the calendar.
Okay. Any questions from Mrs. Zelinski?
Just a quick thing. Can we update the calendar to show when will Dr. Shaw, when will the Finance Committee review the audit? So typically, the board reviews the audit at the Finance Committee. Is there, what ramifications are there now that if the board isn't going to do that?
There aren't any ramifications.
Okay, can we update the calendar to remove audit from the Finance Committee? And I think that's it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, moving on. Next is the Policy Committee update.
Thank you, Eric. We had a self-imposed deadline of September 6th to share feedback on sections 1, 3, and 8. I received feedback from Kelly, and I had some myself. I shared those with the board. We did not have an in-person meeting this week in the interest of trying to get us out of here on time instead of reviewing each of these sections, unless you have a question about what is meant by any of these. If we could agree to going through anything more in depth by our next meeting, which is scheduled for October 14th, and then include written feedback on our next section, which is section 7. If we could have written feedback to Eric and I by October 1st, that would be fantastic, and I would again compile them and share them. And then at that October 14th meeting, we can go through in quick fashion, I would assume 1, 3, 7, and 8, and then any changes that we might have could then go on for first read. And again, these are not changes that are press related. These are ones that we're taking just a fresh look at our policies. I identified like a typo, things that don't need, except for one, a legal input, and we can discuss that in more depth at the policy meeting if everyone's agreeable with that.
Julie, October 1st, you want us to provide feedback on section 7? Is that right?
That's the next.
That's the next on our calendar.
One. We slid everything.
Right,
out.
right. What's section 7? What is it? Instruction, students? What? I don't know.
Students, I believe.
Students. Okay.
I
So,
should know that. That is students, correct.
so October 1st, you want feedback on
If we could
sections.
share the written feedback to Eric and I can compile it and send out a summary for discussion at the next policy meeting. That would be fantastic. And then we can go through 1, 3, 7, and 8. Is everyone agreeable with that?
We're going to do all four sections in one meeting.
Yeah, Eric, I don't think it'll be a problem because I already identified 1, 3, and 8, and those, I think you would agree, that there's really, most of them are informational. I had a couple questions, and then one, again, was a typo. So I think unless the feedback is significant for section 7, I think we should be in good shape to get through all 4.
Julie, I apologize if you guys have discussed this, but I don't know if you're aware, October 14th, the offices are closed. Okay, it is a holiday. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I went to put it in my calendar. I was like, oh no, we're not here that day, so.
No, I think it matters to everybody. Okay.
All right, so you're proposing another date.
Yeah. Can we do the 7th? Is everybody okay with the 7th, the week before? And then I'll compile quickly and, get it out. No, October 7th, so we can be in time for the October meeting on the 16th. Is that possible?
My only feedback on that is then you need feedback sooner, right?
No, I'll get it,
Still by the
turned around.
1st?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just given a cushion,
Yeah,
but I don't need that much cushion. I'll commit to getting it out before that meeting.
okay.
So one other quick question.
Sure.
Where do we stand on, I wasn't able to make that August meeting. So where do we stand on section 2? Were there changes or are there not changes? Or are we going to discuss those later or how's that work?
So in section 2, there were certainly press changes and we all agreed on that separately. There was discussion on changes that went beyond that and there was no, the majority voted against that. So we are not doing any changes other than the ones that were presented in press, which we are voting on further down in the action items today.
Okay, sorry, I just thought of a
No,
bunch of
it's fine.
questions today on some of this stuff. So
No problem.
last year I went to a couple of the sessions on policy, maybe at the annual conference. And one of the things I thought I heard them say was that you should keep some sort of like moratorium of policies, or policy manuals per se. So assuming that these press release policy updates get approved later on, is it safe to say that, and I know this is a brand new committee, so I don't know how the new protocol is, but
Sure.
so will we have you as chair or Kelly Lynn or a combination of both? Are we going to memorialize the policy manual as, well, it's today. Today's 18th, right? So would we then say that the current manual, we would call it September 17th, sorry, get it right eventually, September 17th version of the board policy manual, and then who's going to make the changes for the press and get them online, who's going to take responsibility for that, and then that would be essentially our September 18th board policy manual until later on when we look at sections 1, 3, 7, 8 potentially.
Sure.
Is that kind of the thought pattern on it? Or?
So Kelly Lynn and I met after Steve and I discussed, and then the memo that was drafted and shared about the press changes. Kelly Lynn has that well in hand and will update those and will memorialize. Unless I misunderstood, I thought you were on it. We met after, and she has that well in hand.
So you heard that same message last
Yes.
year? Yeah, all right, so I'm not making it up. Good.
And it was also my suggestion that we put reviewed and then the date. So we have a record to keep that memorialized. So we know when we last looked at it. And I think that's good practice as well, and that would just be part of what you are saying.
Okay.
Did we agree to that, Julie? That's what we're going to do, is put that review date on our policies then, as the policy committee goes through them?
I thought we did agree to that, but if we have to have a formal
Action.
action item, I can do that for the next meeting.
Probably should just be safe.
Okay, will do.
Better be safe than sorry, I guess, right?
Okay.
Okay, any other, oh, wait, I'm sorry, are you done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for me? Those? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on, thank you. Superintendent, Mr. Stein.
Yes, not a ton. I do want to let you know that we are engaging in conversations with the village regarding Metra. As of right now, what we plan on doing is continuing to maintain our current contract with Metra through 2028, I believe, is when that ends. The village has asked us to continue to maintain that agreement with Metra. And the village has assured us that they will continue to do whatever necessary like physical maintenance on the lot itself, like patching potholes and things of that nature. And Dave Rana was part of that discussion too. And, you know, it's really not a problem at all for us to continue to plow that lot. Honestly, the bulk of who uses that lot is our teachers. So we will continue to plow that lot. We will continue to salt that lot, cut the grass. There's not a lot of grass around there, but we'll just continue to maintain that. And the village asked us to continue to do that through the length of the agreement. I don't know if there's really anything else to that, Terry. I don't think there was. Yeah, thanks. You know, progress is going okay out in the north side of MES, or the MIS. I call it the MIS playground area. Certainly our classes at MES will likely use it as well, because it's going to be a really nice spot when it's done. It's going to have a soccer field painted on there, football field, Foursquare, all that good stuff, gaga pits, basketball court. The current timeline that I have been notified of is that this weekend on Sunday, they are planning on doing the striping of that area. We still don't have a date for fencing being put in. So I don't really want kids on there before that fencing gets on there. You know, once the striping gets done, we can certainly put the basketball hoop up at that point, once the striping is done. And yeah, it's been an ordeal, to say the least. So again, I want to thank Terry and Dave for their work on that. We do have meetings on a weekly basis still so far, and that is our highlight, to discuss that with the architect during those times. So I think we're getting close. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr.
Yes. For clarity, for the Metro lot, I thought that the Metro lot currently has like a lot of potholes and like it's not
in the best shape.
It's not in the best shape. So are they going to correct that now that you've had these conversations?
They're going to fix the potholes.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like they're going to go in wholesale and
Do
find
everything.
it all out. Yeah. So yes, they'll fix the potholes. They, John, I can't think of his.
Yeah, the administrator.
village administrator.
Yeah.
Thank you. John had mentioned to us that they have a new piece of equipment to do some cold patching, which actually warms up the cold patch a little bit, and then they put it in. So he said that they would take care of that. So.
Okay, great. And then just for the playground, one point that I appreciate, Dr. Shaw, when we met, was that we have not, there's been delays to the schedule clearly, and this has been a bigger ordeal than we had, originally. But payment has not occurred. So that is a key point I think everybody needs to understand is this isn't something that the money is gone yet. So
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Dr. Johnson?
All right, this month, as always, I provided an update for you regarding the learning that has taken place amongst our staff during this month so far. In addition, I did provide an update for you regarding our Advanced Learners Task Force. Today was our first meeting, so we met this afternoon. We have 17 really great, dedicated educators on our task force, so I'm really looking forward to the work that we will be accomplishing together over the course of these next few months. We have 6 meetings scheduled, and I provided that schedule to you through Mr. Stein's board brief a few weeks ago. Melissa Henshaw, our representative that you met from Northwestern, has also been in attendance, was also in attendance today, and she'll be continue to be in attendance through the meetings as a resource for us throughout the fall and into the winter as well. And in addition, an email, and if you're a parent in the district, you probably received it, hopefully, seeking parents to join our task force on in one of our October meetings to provide some feedback and their perspective of how we can strengthen communication, as that was one of the action priority items, as well as one of their recommendations of how we can do a better job at communicating what we currently offer, as well as what we may be offering in the future as well. So as of today, I received 29 parent responses. I have that open till the end of the week, and then based on the numbers, we'll determine if we need to filter that down or not, so that we do have a manageable group size for that time. So we are looking forward to welcoming our parents in for that piece of the task force. That's all I have.
Any questions for Dr. Johnson?
thank you, Dr. Johnson, for the update. I guess my only request would be, just if we could keep, and I'm sure you're planning on this already, to keep this on the docket, that we get an update every month as you go through this task force. And I appreciate also the work that you did working with Northwestern to get the estimate on the professional development, that, just an estimate for our budget on what professional development potentially we would have allocated to this advanced learners, and the estimate of the budget for the task force itself, the cost to the district for that task force. So thank you for your work on that, and I look forward to future updates.
Yes,
Thanks.
I will update every month as I have the past 6 months as well. Each month as there's things that I can report on, things that have actually happened. So yep, I will continue to do that for you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Director of Student Services, Mrs. Munt.
Good evening, everyone. We've had a fantastic start to the school year as our department dives into individual education programs and really gets to know students. What a fantastic and dedicated team we have here at Mokena School District. You'll see on my update, there's a cute little logo in the corner. Our focus this year is taking things one step at a time, and being in education, we had to make it a little cutesy. So we are taking the metaphor, the adage of eating an elephant one bite at a time, and kind of Dr. Johnson actually, that was one of the first things she said to me. Was I had all these great plans, and I was so excited about everything, and she's like, how do you eat an elephant, Megan? I'm like, well, you don't eat elephants. But if you do, what do you mean by that? So she said, you eat it one bite at a time. So similar to this, as we face challenges, we do that with patience. We break things down step by step, and most importantly, we celebrate each milestone that we accomplish as a team. The next section here is professional development. Dr. Johnson and I work very closely to make for sure that not only general education staff, but special education staff have access to quality professional development that supports staff in meeting the needs of our individual students. So this past early release day, we had two different trainings that were occurring, a few trainings, I should say. We had Center for Intensive Behavioral Supports. We did a module training on behavioral de-escalation or crisis de-escalation. And then additionally, we had another training for ISBE legal requirements concerning restraint and time out. All staff participated in that interact with students. Additionally, the Student Services Department, including special education special education teachers, social workers, and paraprofessionals, had additional opportunities for training. They received training and have continued access to training on visual schedules, prompting strategies to facilitate effective instruction, and then better understanding autism. We also have a population of students who need additional support in accessing a more specialized instruction. We have new staff in the district, and we wanted to make for sure that the staff who are supporting some of our needier students in regards to academics get access to a unique curriculum training. That has been in the district since 2019. We just wanted to refresh that and make for sure that training has been provided to them. Additionally, we are looking at curriculum and instruction throughout the year. Obviously, our first goal is for all students to access general education curriculum, but we have students that typically cannot access that education as well as others. So we need to make for sure that our staff has the tools at hand to modify the curriculum to meet their individual needs. So Stacy Lavelle is supporting in that process to make for sure we know where the areas of strength and pinpoint areas of growth and make a plan moving forward. The last document here you'll see, or the last page of my report, you'll see some cute little faces on here. This is from the Star Classroom. This is our shout out for this month. Mrs. Frank is new to our district and has been absolutely wonderful. She has dove in and created a really amazing environment for students to thrive. She is collaborating with the various related service providers to create really seamless schedules for our students and encourage independence. I love going into that classroom. I love going into a lot of classrooms, but that one is just something special about that group of kiddos as they really dive into working as a team to support one another and access our school in the best ways possible. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Thanks for answering my questions. Next up, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you. So tonight we've got information. We've got 2 months of the financials, as the financials weren't ready last month. You've got 2 months of the financial reports on the board pack. There's also an information item regarding purchasing a district van. We're looking to use the van for multiple reasons, multiple tasks. Those were listed in the memo. And just as a reminder, when we use those for curriculum-related trips, we can submit that on our transportation report for reimbursement depending upon the purpose that the van was driven. We are still struggling in hiring bus drivers, so we have had an ad on Indeed. We put ads in the principal's newsletter, and our HR coordinator, Kim Zapanchik, went a little old school and put up flyers on bulletin boards in the grocery stores and the coffee shop. She said, who's my target market? Which might be grandparents and retirees. They might not be on Indeed or get a principal's newsletter. So she's got the little tear off and call Kim on bright pink paper on pinup boards. She's creative, so nice job for Kim. Working to try to find bus drivers. We did have one bus driver come in who was referred to by Kathy Heights. She sent her brother in to come in, try to maybe become a bus driver for us. All right, so that's one we've got in the pipeline. She's also has 15 to 20 substitutes that she's doing an onboarding process for. She's put together our flu shot for our staff this year, and she's worked with the administrative assistant ones at all 3 buildings to consolidate the Schedule Bs in accordance with the new MTA contract. So she's also this week attending an HR essentials for professional development to hone her skills even further. And in food service, Ann's got a few new items. She's got a few new items this year, a chicken cheese quesadilla, some new hamburgers, and a chicken patty. She's hoping that some of these new items go over well with our students and staff members. We've went through a lot of the work that our building and grounds director has oversaw over the summer. He's consistently working on managing those projects. The action items we have tonight are the walking routes. Those are the same as they've been last year, the hazardous walking routes. We have to submit that on an annual basis. We do have a line item in accordance with policy 880, gifts to the district, on accepting the gift from the music boosters. We've got an action item for the storage shed. The storage shed's been in our capital improvement plan, Dr. Rolinits. And we've got a map that shows where that storage shed is going to sit. Some of the equipment that's outside. We'll have a home when we get this storage shed. Did come in a little higher than our estimates that were in the capital improvement plan by about $40,000. You know that we've got money in the budget to cover that. Procedural, we've got a working cash abatement resolution for the board to finish that policy or finish that procedure to get the working cash transferred into the working cash of the transportation fund. And the last action item is the budget adoption.
Questions, Dr. Shaw?
I have a couple. Dr. Shaw, I'm sorry I didn't ask this sooner. Do you know offhand what fund the storage unit is in our budget on?
It's in Fund 21, the O&M referendum fund.
And I saw 2 attachments outside Mokena Junior High. Do we know the value roughly of what is outside that we're trying to get inside?
Sorry, I listed the items. I don't have the values associated with those items on that list. I can find out the value of those items.
I don't know what this is, the Kubota and attachments. I only saw 2 attachments. What is a Kubota? Is that,
It's very similar to a Bobcat.
where's that being housed now?
There's a storage container that sits outside by the baseball or the softball field, and it just barely fits in there. We also, if you go behind the junior high, you can see the equipment that's sitting out. It's a lot of the it's the things for the Caterpillar that we have. It's a lot of snow removal equipment and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I went by there. I saw 2 pieces of equipment. One looked like a snowplow, and the other one I couldn't. Another attachment.
There's a brush out there. There's a plow. The other equipment pieces are crammed into the storage container. It barely fits, and that's why those things are outside. So the Caterpillar's in there. We also have a few other pieces of equipment that we have to put in the receiving room. There's a garage door on the side of the building. It doesn't. If you ever want to stop by, I can show you. It doesn't really fit in there. We end up having to take the mowers and the snow blowers that we keep in that room. It's way overcrowded, and it needs to be someplace else. The mowers have to be brought back and forth over here after mowing season is over. It's just kind of really a pain to do that kind of thing.
Is that done using a trailer, or we have?
We have to go use our trucks and trailers to move it back and forth.
Thank you. A couple other things. Terry, I didn't submit questions to this, but over the course of the next month, I would be interested to understand for the proposed van. It sounds like what we're proposing is a mixture of transporting students and what I'll refer to as operational uses by our technology team, I think was mentioned, and and Mrs. Montveit. So I would be interested to understand what legal requirements we have for transporting students. And it seemed to me that the implication was that currently students are being transported using bus drivers, but we wouldn't necessarily need to use our bus drivers to transport students. So I would be interested to see, just again, the transporting students piece of it, and then understand where in the budget that would fall for over the next 30 days. And then the note for clarity on your report references the action item on the board, on the budget. And I want to make sure it's on record that this note in the report is kind of obsolete because we're referencing changes that are no longer present in the budget. And then my final, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry, I remember. I just looked at the website, and our website does not show that we are paying for insurance for the bus drivers. So that was one of the reasons the board identified that we passed that, was to be able to recruit and retain new bus drivers. So I think we should update our website to reflect that we offer that benefit. And I would just explore potentially, Steve, utilizing maybe Nicole to help spread that job listing out on different avenues to try to get it. Going to the grocery store is fine, but we have a PR. Is it Nicole is her name? I'm sorry. Just what could potentially we task her to do to help find the bus driver and spread the word of that opportunities, hiring opportunities?
Questions? Have a couple. So this storage shed, if we get it approved tonight, it'll be installed before winter time, so that we won't have anything sitting outside in the snow, and that potentially would depreciate equipment faster and cause us to have to replace it sooner.
That's our expectation.
Okay. And then one quick final one. So we talked about I've been in that little storage room that's overflowing. I can imagine what it looks like, but so with this storage shed, you're comfortable that all the equipment will fit successfully in this storage shed, and it'll clean out that.
It should. I mean, it won't take everything out of Bruce's. It's not Bruce's. The maintenance room, but it should make it much more livable in there and get everything that's outside inside. And I wish it would hold my car, but evidently that's not a priority for the district. So, but yeah, I think it should take it.
Perfect. Okay. All right, next up, Mr. Henson.
Sorry, good evening. I only had two quick items on the agenda on my board report for tonight. First thing was Skyward 2.0 to cumulative. Just gave us some information about how they operate, and one of the things that caught my attention that I really liked was the ability to vote on new features or feature requests, they call it. Community that has Skyward Q can vote on a feature. The engineers will look at it, actual engineers will look at it and say if it can or can't be done. If it can be done, they let the community vote on it and prioritize when it gets done and implemented. So something that everyone wants and it can be done, the engineers will work on it sooner rather than later. I also gave us a timeline of what it looks like for the switchover for the migration. Unfortunately, we were hoping to have access to the Knowledge and Training Hub today, but IS Corp, as we know on Monday, IS Corp is the company that hosts Skyward. They also host a lot of banking software. They had some issues, and that's why Skyward was down Monday morning. Kind of put them behind from giving us access to that today, but we're still on track to hopefully have that by the end of September. Once we get that access to that training hub, it'll list all the tasks from the image of our current Skyward. It'll list how long it's going to take to complete the tasks set up in queue, and a timeline and the order which it should be done. So once we have that, we can get our pre-testing database test done by the end of November, and hopefully by the end of November, we'll turn over the keys to our testing queue database where we actually set everything up and apply those tasks that we assigned. And we just follow the timeline from our project manager, and hopefully by June, it'll be good to go, and the switch over, the migration happens the end of June. They take one final snapshot of our 2.0 database. They turn it off. They give themselves 5 days so no one has access to Skyward for 5 days. And then the first week of July, Skyward Q is live. I'm not sure which of our representatives said it, but they were proud of us for taking the step out of 2004 into 2024. So for those of you who don't know, Skyward Q has actually been around since 2016, so it's been out for quite a while. I also talked about our fiber refresh real quick. We already had two companies come out and look, and we walked the distance between all the server rooms. I do have another company with talking about pre-staging before they come out on Tuesday. I did today get quotes in. Both of them are around $80,000, a little bit more than what I was hoping for, but still less than when I did this at my last district. So, and those quotes are for the Generation 4 fiber, which is what future-proof the district for many years. It can support 100 gig. So, yeah, that's all I had. So. Any questions on
Henson? Okay.
Thank you.
Principal reports. All right, we'll go with Mrs. Chorley looked away, so we'll go with Mrs. Chorley.
I expected that. School's great. Kids are great. Start to the school year was really smooth. We started our walking club last week. Miss LeGrand and Mrs. Arduino are heading that up. So we have over 30 students that signed up. So fun to see them walking around. Young Rembrandt started, Spanish club starting, and all the other after-school programs are starting at the beginning of October. So we have strong registration for all of those extracurricular activities. Want to say thank you to the PTA, looking at you, Mokena Teachers Association, the MTA. We dedicated Addie's Friendship Bench last week for our student, Addie Smerzinski. Her parents were there and her sister, who is in kindergarten in Mrs. Blank's class. They did an amazing job. It was so beautiful and lovely, and we'd like to thank, we had a huge turnout. I mean, I was so pleased. We invited her classmates who are now in third grade. Several of them came. Tanya Spilchin, who is one of our former bus drivers, donated these beautifully decorated butterfly sugar cookies. And we released butterflies in Addie's honor. And so it was really beautiful, and it was just a great day, and her parents were very appreciative. And the bench is amazing. It's amazing. So thank you to everybody who donated and worked so hard to make that happen. We have our preschool compliance visit happening sometime either this week or next week. So we are ready. We are more than ready for them to come and tell us how wonderful we are. Our teachers and staff just really and do truly an amazing job with those preschool students. They give them such a strong foundation, and I look forward to celebrating all that they do for our students. And finally, I just want to thank Tech for always being responsive to us. Anytime that we have a problem, they are there, and I appreciate that. And I can say the same for Dave Rana, who is always responsive, responds to anything that I need right away. If there are classrooms where the air conditioning isn't working, he is Johnny on the spot and he gets it done. So he did a lot to make our classrooms comfortable during the last several days of hot temperatures. So they've been wonderful. So thank you. Thank you. Our teachers can't do our jobs if you guys aren't there to support us. So thank you. That's all.
Questions for Mrs. Chorley?
I have two quick ones, and I'm so sorry I didn't send them to you, so I can put these in an email if you prefer. But it just struck me with the extracurriculars. Is there preference given to teachers if they would prefer to do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I've put it out
fantastic.
many times.
Okay, fantastic.
Mhm.
And then is there an opportunity for, because some of the outsourced ones are pricey, the free and reduced lunch, or is that, is there an opportunity for kids that may not have the means to join those clubs that are on the pricier end? Is that something?
It's not something that we've offered, or I'm just going to be frank, have
Okay,
thought
no, it's
about.
okay.
But that's definitely something we can explore.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
No, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Rolinits?
So I'm not going to rehash everything in my report, but I just want to recognize all of our activities. Like you said, some of our activities are actually ending or just ended. We start in July with some of these activities. So cross country still going. Girls softball ended their season. I believe boys baseball ended their season as well. And we just started girls basketball, and we're about to. Girls basketball started last night with a couple of wins, really nice wins. I think out of our 4 teams that played, only I think one team lost and all the rest won. But 7th grade looks really good. 7th grade girls basketball looks really good this year. So that's really good. I do want to congratulate our marching band for their performance in the Fall Fest parade. I know Julie was there riding in the back of the truck in the heat. It was a warm day, but the kids were great and they did a really nice job. I think that's it's a nice way to get our kids out there and practicing and seeing. All the other feeders were there as well, so that was good to see that. And then Lincoln Way Marching Band pulls up right next to us and makes us look extremely small and very, very quiet. One thing that I do want to point out, I should have done it during my school improvement plan, is something that Dave's mentioned, is that we too have noticed, and we did our first CER collections, our first CERs in class in the first weeks of school, and the 6th grade students or 6th grade teachers noticed a huge difference in the abilities of the students. So what you did worked, and this is just going to continue to spiral upward. And we're seeing that change, and it was nice. I'm not saying that 7th and 8th grade also did theirs, and they were shocked at what they didn't lose anything over the summer, and that they were way better. And that gives us a chance when we're starting from a higher spot, we can just take the kids even higher each year. So it's a good thing, the coordination between the school improvement plans. Thank you to Dr. Johnson about that as well. The coordination between the plans and the focusing on those goals are just going to continue to help us be much more successful as we continue to go into the future. I think that's all I have today. I just wanted to thank them for the work that they're doing and their teachers as well. It's nice to see that coordinated effort going from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade, and the leadership of my compatriots here and all around the table that support that kind of thing. So, thank you.
Questions, Dr. Rolinits?
Dr. Rolinits, I wanted to thank you for talking about the safety issue that with your students and sending out the message. Would you have anything you want to share with how the students received that message?
Well, they're very quiet. So I know people probably have heard a lot about what's been going on in the area with safety, and there's been in Joliet especially. In Joliet there were some threats that were made on social media. There were 3 students, a 14-year-old, a 12, and 2 12-year-olds who were arrested for doing that and were in custody. There was a threat at Grissom in Tinley Park. There was a problem in Manhattan. So this is going around, and the students, the social media piece, it gets copied, and it's a big game of telephone, and they don't know where it ends. So this morning I spoke to the students, talked to them about how we expect them to react. We want them to tell us if something comes up. We want them to always tell an adult, because sometimes when we talk to these kids, they think it's a joke, or they don't know what to do. And even though we've been telling them since they were in kindergarten, please tell an adult, they don't always do it. They think that somebody's joking about it, or they don't know who it is, so they don't know what to do. So we reiterated to them, please share that with an adult. The kids are listening. I think they definitely are listening. They bring us things now a little bit. They're good, pretty good. Our kids are pretty good at bringing us things. Almost too many things. We've had several gaggle alerts in the last 24 hours. We've had where we call home and we talk. Gaggle is a monitoring system for our computer system. So if something comes up on there, there's different levels of security. We get an email. Several of us get an email, and then there's usually followed by a bunch of text messages, and then phone calls, and we make sure that everybody's safe, and that's been the case. And then the message that I sent out to parents today. So if you're a junior high parent, I think all the board gets those as well. Just to reiterate, it's a parent's job to help us out with this. Talk to your kids. If you've listened to my Friday updates, you know I'm not a big fan of students and social media in the first place. I don't find that it's very conducive for students, and it's barely conducive for adults. So I think that they're listening, and I've gotten good parent responses from it as well. And hopefully, we want these things to die down, but I don't want anybody to ever think that they can't tell us what's going on. We want our kids to be safe. So,
Okay, Mr. McAtee.
Thank you. Just a couple quick things. I want to thank our 3 band and orchestra directors, Miss Clifford, Miss Shuby, and Miss Snyder. Our numbers are just through the roof this year. On paper, we have about 153 students signed up for band and orchestra. There's some overlap between orchestra and band. So we have about 130 students participating in our music program. So that's over a third of our enrollment is part of our music program. So that's fabulous. I think a big chunk of that is because of the recorder program at the elementary school. Without that recorder program, we wouldn't have anywhere near the numbers. So, but the numbers are great. Kids are excited. The director is doing a fabulous job. So looking forward to our first concerts coming up later this year. A couple thank yous I want to mention. Dr. Shaw and Dave Rano, if you went through our parking lot last week, we had some parking lot repairs. We had some big old equipment. We had some lanes marked off. Dr. Shaw and Dave were there helping coordinate getting these big old pieces of equipment out of the way. One morning I pulled in, our entire parking lot was covered with trucks and dump trucks and heavy machinery. I'm like, Dave, get over here. And he did. And so within 5 minutes, all of these trucks were moving out of the way, so it didn't interrupt our arrival. But thank you to them for getting all this done. The playground is, once we get the fence, will be usable. So things are really moving along the way. So thank you, Terry, for all that you're doing. Our clubs are up and running. Student council elections are this week, so we have posters up all over the building. So, it's fun to see everything getting moving. I know Dr. Rolina has talked about the pit crew, and that's district-wide. We really are looking at it more, instead of 3 schools, we're all in this together. And one way that we're seeing this now is 2 of the volleyball coaches from the junior high, Mrs. Grimes and Mrs. Storino, they're going to run a volleyball club at MIS for our 4th and 5th grade girls. And that's starting next week. So that's really, a way to, continue to keep our kids, feeling like they're part of that community, and a way to kind of, get them into the junior high and get them familiar with that. So thanks for that as well. Great start to the school year, great staff, great students. If he gets a garage, I want a garage. So can I put if I'll put a ticket in for that one and we'll get rolling. She has a garage. She has, so come on. That's all I've got.
Any questions for Ms. McAtee? Would you accept if that green walls and a yellow roof? No?
I want a garage door opener so I can pull in and walk right into the building and.
Okay, Mrs. Briscoe, Lincoln Way Area Special Education.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, can't hear you.
Can't
hear you.
I'm unmuted.
Still can't hear you. Oh.
Can you hear me now? Nothing?
Try now.
Hello?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Well, all that, and honestly, I want to apologize to my fellow board members and my administration. I have no report to give this evening. I have been here in Michigan since September 4th or 5th. I don't even know what day it is anymore right now for a family emergency. But Kelly Lynn was kind enough to post everything today in board book and sent it to our board. So if there's any questions anybody has, please just get with me and I will make sure I forward it to Sarah. Thank you.
Briscoe, okay, for your request. Completed, okay. Action requests, approved. Ready? All right, there we go. Approval of the previous minutes.
Closed session meetings in August 27, 2024, special meeting as presented.
Second by Lisa, any discussion? Please call the vote.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes?
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ost?
Yes?
Mrs. Tunney?
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Next up is district bills. Mrs. McMillan had it this one.
I move to approve the monthly bills as presented.
Second by Sam, any discussion?
I want to note that I sat with Dr. Shaw on the bills, and I appreciate her time, and that's it.
Discussion? Okay, please call the vote.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ost? Mrs. Tunney?
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Next up is personnel.
I move to approve personnel recommendation 7C1 through 4.
Second by Lisa, any discussion? Call the vote.
Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ost?
Yes.
Mrs. Tunney?
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Okay, motion passed. Next up is the consent agenda.
I move to separate out the items on the consent agenda to allow for discussion of each item.
Discussion? Call the vote.
Mrs. McMillan?
Do we have to vote on this? I think that,
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think we really need to do that, but you just vote on them separately and or either or type of thing. Either vote them all at once, but
so once I move to separate them, I think it's just separated.
you got to vote. All right, we'll vote.
Okay. Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ost? Mrs. Tunney? Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Okay, we'll vote separately. First one is the rate of destruction of closed session minutes.
I move to table the destruction of the verbatim audio recordings of the closed session minutes from September of 2022. I'm sorry, September 21st, October 19th, and November of 2022, January and February of 2023 for next month to allow Ms. Briscoe and I to finish listening after I had requested to listen to those tapes.
Discussion? Okay, please call the vote.
Mrs. Ost? Mrs. Tunney? Mrs. Zelinski? Mrs. Briscoe?
No. And I'm going to explain, I'm saying no because I have had a lot going on this month, the past month and a half, and it wouldn't be fair if I voted to distract them when I haven't been available.
We're voting to table it, Anna.
That was it?
We're voting to table it.
Okay, that would be a yes. But now you guys know why. Would I be? Okay, never mind. I'm tired, see?
Okay, yes.
I'm tired.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Motion passed. Next up, hazardous walking routes.
Good.
Second by Lisa. Any discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Mrs. Tunney? Yes. Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ost?
Okay, motion passed. Next up is the approval to accept the gift from Music Boosters in an amount of $1,540.72.
We approve the acceptance of the gift from the Music Boosters in the amount of $1,540.
Second by Sam. Any discussion?
Yes. For clarity, I didn't ask this in advance and I apologize, but this is not something that we have done in the past. I know the Music Boosters has issued checks to the district in the past, so I'm just curious, is there something that has changed or why is this an action for the board to do?
There is something new. And we talked about procedures with music boosters, how we were going to go forward, not only with music boosters, but that was definitely the impetus for the conversation. When we looked at board policy 8:80 says gifts to the district. If it's more than $500, the board accepts that gift. And so that's the process that we're going to follow going forward. Any kind of gift that we receive in an amount more than $500, we'll bring it to you to accept.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that. It seems right on to me. My only comment is, should the board, the document that was provided to the board was just a copy of the check. There's no commentary as to, what this is. I didn't understand what Angel, the memo says Angel accounts for fees, music, something. And so can we get some?
You will. That I didn't get the memo to Kelly Lynn, and I forgot about the memo to Kelly Lynn. I'm sorry. That should have been a memo with the board policy quoted and our rationale and the new protocol that we were following. Yeah, there should have been a memo. I opened it and looked at the check and went, I forgot to get that memo to Kelly.
Yeah, that's okay,
my
Terry.
fault. Sorry.
Terry, do you want to verbally just say what the memo would have said?
It would have said, according to board policy 8:80, gifts to the district, and then you would have got a snapshot of what that policy says from the district policy manual. And here's a gift from the Music Boosters. It's going to be applied as it has, as requested, for some student fees. And we have a list from the Music Boosters on whose accounts we're going to apply those to and in what amounts.
Thank you.
Mrs. Zelinski? Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bush? Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ost? Mrs. Tunney?
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
I'm so sorry, Anna. I move to approve the recommendation that the Mokena Junior High Bowling Club converts to an IESA bowling team as presented.
Lisa, any discussion?
Yes, sorry, I'm going to say this fast. This bowling, I support extracurriculars and expanding, offerings to students. So kudos to you guys to do that. The format of this bowling team seems to follow the one that was originally done for golf. And I seem to remember specifically when that was passed that the board would revisit at some point, how it's going, what the enrollment is. I remember it was, because these are investment of district dollars into these programs. And so we just want to make sure that it's suiting the need, right? And what the actual costs are, et cetera. So I support the bowling team, but I just want to have a refresh on can we get an update on the golf and whatever other maybe new programs, I think orchestra, I'd be curious, it's something we newly implemented. Could we just get a refresher on where we stand? It sounds like orchestra is wildly successful. And so I would just be interested in hearing more about that. But a refresher on the golf, I think, would be useful. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Mrs. Tunney? Yes. Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes?
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan? Yes. Mrs. Ost?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Next up is the junior high storage shed.
I move that the board approve the MJHS storage shed in an amount not to exceed $165,500. Oh, $162,500.
There we go. Second by Lisa. Any discussion?
Yes. I've expressed concern in the past about prioritization of projects and then projects being over the estimate. I understand that this is something that would house some extra equipment that is currently outside, but I, as one board member, do not think that this is a priority when we're looking at Fund 21 for warm, safe, and dry, when we have fire panels on the list to prioritize this. I don't have all the ins and outs of sitting around the table and putting those priorities together. Plus this being over, $40,000 over, I just would, at a minimum, like to push pause on this to see if we can regroup and get a better estimate if this is a priority. Thank you.
Yes, I want to, I have concerns about the priority of projects, and based on what I saw two, what I'm going to say, small attachments sitting outside of Mokena Junior High. I also am concerned about the number of projects that have come in substantially above our original estimates. I believe the original estimate when this was identified in our capital improvement plan was $120,000. And now we're looking at $162,000. And I share concerns on the safety fire panel overhaul, upgrade, being further out than this shed. I would think that upgrades to our fire panels for the safety and security of our staff and students would come at a higher, sooner, I guess, in the timeline than the storage shed. To me, this is a nice to have, but I don't know if we're at the nice to have point. And, there's other safety related expenditures that we've identified that have not been up for approval yet, which I also would say should be done before the shed.
Any discussion? Okay, please call the vote.
Mrs. Zelinski,
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan,
No.
Mrs. Ost, Mrs. Tunney,
Okay, motion passed. Next up is the resolution abating the working cash fund.
I move that the board approve resolution abating the working cash fund of the district in the amount of $244,500.
Second by Lisa. Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Mrs. Briscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan,
Yes.
Mrs. Ost,
Yes.
Mrs. Tunney, Mrs. Zelinski.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. FY '25 budget adoption.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2024-2025 budget as presented.
Second by Sam. Any discussion? Call the vote.
Mrs. Briscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan,
Yes.
Mrs. Ost,
Yes.
Mrs. Tunney,
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Next up is press policy updates 113, 114, 115, and 116.
I'm sorry. I move to approve the policy updates as presented.
By Sam. Any discussion? Call the vote.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan,
Yes.
Mrs. Ost,
Yes.
Mrs. Tunney,
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski,
Yes.
Mrs. Briscoe.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed. Items for the October 16th meeting.
I have the act item on the van with a recommendation and the results, we anticipate the results of the fire panels.
Audit as well.
What's that?
Audit as well.
There will be an audit presentation. Yes.
Thank you. Go. Okay.
I have a couple. Something that we discussed last month that fell off the agenda for this month, I think if we could add back in for next month was the Board of Education had a discussion on opportunities to engage with the community in two-way discussion. And one of the things that we were going to follow up today was that we were going to present a calendar, potentially where the board could assign events to go out and meet with community members, as well as revisit, I guess, new ideas from board members. So that was supposed to be today, but I would just request that we add that back in because we missed it today. The second thing is, I would like to ask the board to add back reconsideration of the safety committee. And for clarity, meaning I want us to reconsider the Board of Education establishing a board safety committee. Now, the purpose of the safety committee would not be to involve ourselves in the procedures and execution of the safety plan that has been done by our administration, but more so for the board to discuss and identify potential improvements to our safety plan, opportunities for training, and potentially allocating additional resources in our amended budget towards safety and expanding or improving our current program, upon our current program, not improving our current program, but adding to it and enhancing. So I would ask the board to to revisit that safety committee that we voted down in November of last year. And then the third thing connected a little bit, Steve, is I don't think we've approved the safety plan. So I think we need to do that next month.
Board, I can look into that. I'm not sure that the board needs to make the official approval of it.
Oh, we did last year, yeah.
Oh, okay, my apologies.
I think it is in our policy, but we could, that would be on the list as well.
It's like a paragraph somewhere that says board will approve it. I don't remember where, but it's somewhere. Okay, next steps, follow-up related to discussion or action items. For the good of Mokena.
Eric, can I just add, I want to go back really quick to the policy committee. If you could, on that October 1 date, regardless of whether you have feedback or not, if you could just send me an email by then saying, yes, I have, and here's what I'd like to look at, or no, I don't, I'd really appreciate that. It would help me to know that we're on track. And then in the memo, I forgot to mention the administrative policies. There's an opportunity. I listened to an IASB webinar, and there's an opportunity for the district to participate in a project to, it's called their Administrative Procedure Project, and it was something that I can forward. I think I linked it into the memo that I drafted up, and it's in board book. But if you want to take a look at that, and we could, I don't know if we need to add it as an item, Eric, but just take a look and see if that's something that, and that would be a step that Mr. Stein would need to take if updating our administrative policies and aligning the policies with the other documents that we have. I just, like I said, I'm just offering it up as a suggestion to look through and see if it might be something that's a worthwhile endeavor. Thank you.
So that Anna, I think you remember this as well. We brought that up last year. So yeah, I think that is a worthy, I'm not positive it's the best fit for Mr. Stein. I think potentially it would be a project for our new superintendent, but I think it's a worthwhile project, at least, know about. Anna, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this last year.
I do remember.
It would also be something that you could look into if you want to speak to somebody at the III conference. They will, IASB will be there, and they will be advertising things such as Press Plus, and I would venture to guess that they'll be advertising this there as well. Yeah. So you could probably get some hands-on with it at the III conference in November.
Thank you.
So speaking of that conference, can you refresh my memory, board members? Do we coordinate, should we add that to our agenda, some type of coordination on the sessions that, I'm not sure if all board members are going to attend that conference, but kind of divide and conquer on the sessions at that conference? Should we add that to the agenda for next month so we're ready in November? I have one. The Village of Mokena sent out a advertisement. Just a reminder, looks like the first opportunity to participate in their comprehensive plan was today, but there's another opportunity on October 12th. So anybody that's interested can go to planmokena.org to look into participating in the revamping of the Village of Mokena Comprehensive Plan.
Next week is homecoming week at Lincoln Way Central. So I know the junior high will be participating in a spirit week, but I know Lincoln Way will be an exciting time over there. And I think is the marching band performing at the game on Friday. So if you want to go see part of the show for LWMB, they're not quite done with it yet, but it'd be a fun game and a fun week to go over there to see a Lincoln Way game.
Thank you. Closed session. I don't think we have anything for closed session.
Eric, I suggested something for closed session, a discussion about a student issue that was related to safety. So I'm not sure how to best handle that.
Are we prepared to discuss it if we?
I am, yeah, if the board so chooses.
Okay, I guess we go around the room and see. Anna?
Yes?
Yes to what?
I couldn't hear Julie again, so I know she said something about, she suggested something for closed session, but I didn't hear your response to that.
We're just asking if we're going to go to closed session for an item that Julie brought up.
No, the agenda.
What's that?
Not if it was not on the.
Closed session items don't have to be listed prior to, so just FYI.
Anna, Julie said it was related to a safety issue for a student, so just to give you that further context. So the question is, are you okay to go into closed session right now to discuss that?
Yes.
No, we had that big one for the. Okay. I move that the board move to closed session for security procedures, school building safety and security, and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual or threatened or reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public, or public property. For a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, please call the vote. Kelly?
Mrs. Zelinski? Yes. Mrs. Tunney? Yeah. Mrs. Ost?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yeah.
Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It's 9:48, so let's meet, or 9:49, start at 10. Lucky you, Dr. Rolinits.